welcome to a fine edition of my so-called 8-Bit Life. I'm your host, Roberto Villegas. Joining me today, John, Joe, and Garrett of Weird at Last. How's it going, you guys?
What's up?
Great.
Going well.
How's it going?
It's going great. It's funny because I was trying to think back to when I had you guys last on, and we talked about this a little bit on the pre-show, but I don't mind kind of bleeding it in here. But between the last time you guys have been on, because we had this giant email thread of stuff, we had gone from Google Hangout to live stream on Twitch to software crapping out to now back to like the old school pre-record that I used to do way back in the early days of this podcast, which is kind of it's sort of a trip kind of going back to all that stuff. And I realized something that happened that episode that we're going to not do today, or at least try our damnedest not to do today.
All right.
And we got a lot of our stuff out in the pre-show, so it should help. We're gonna try to stay on topic.
Okay.
We're not gonna
talk about new metal.
No, we're not gonna talk about new metal. We're not gonna talk about anything else. We're gonna stick on topic. We're going to not mention any sort of weird '90s rockers. Or mid 2000s, if anything. We're going to stay on topic.
What about late 2000s?
I heard Papa Roach put it out.
I'm going to say something. I can't remember.
We ruined it already.
I can't remember if it was I remember recently I was listening to. So this I might as well fucking go. We've already gone. There was a podcast I was listening to. Maybe this is. I don't remember if this was where I told then or now, and I can't remember if it happened. It have to happened recently because I don't think I started listening to this podcast because it didn't come out for another year or so. But someone was mentioning in a podcast that they had saw. I'd like to say, what was his name? They had the song. 15 minutes. Oh fuck! What was it? Now this is how bad my brain is. Like trying to remember a shitty band. I could sing the lyrics like from my halo famous for course. Fuck.
Sugar Ray.
Sugar Ray. Someone.
No,
thank you.
I'm really good at name that tune.
No, it's okay. I just can't remember Sugar Ray. Apparently, someone had, and this is how fucking sad Sugar Ray's career has become.
No.
They were, I think, performing in the parking lot of a mall.
Oh.
Wow.
Like not even.
He's part of the Beach Boys now.
Is he now?
The Beach Boys.
Are you
Beach
serious?
Boys.
Wait, Sugar
like
Ray?
Love.
Oh no,
Yeah,
not like the Beach Boys, like Pet Sounds Beach Boys.
Not Brian Wilson. We're talking Mike Love's incarnation, like Frankenstein of the Beach Boys. He is in it. They have a new video that just came out a month ago. It is atrocious. Go watch it.
Okay, so I saw the
bad.
Beach Boys. I saw the Beach Boys last summer because my dad's a huge fan. I saw the Beach Boys in like the early 90s and stuff when most of them were still around. So I saw them and I did not see Sugar Ray. This is like a new thing.
Recent development. It's an unfortunate development, but here we are. Brian Wilson plays on his own. Like he just finished a tour performing Pet Sounds. So
what does Mark McGrath play in this band?
he just sings.
He's just okay.
Yeah, it's
All right.
like
Is it
more
bring the DJ there too to do the?
You guys, we've done it. Let's go back.
Yeah.
No,
derail.
no.
Yep.
No. I'm gonna derail this even further. I'm gonna put a video of "Do It Again" by Mark Love's Beach Boys featuring Mark McGrath and John Stamos.
No.
This is even great. And John Stamos.
Stamos.
No.
Okay, I've seen the Beach Boys with John Stamos. He is good. I will give John Stamos a lot of credit. He is very good.
He's a great musician.
He is. And it's just weird seeing John Stamos sitting there singing Beach Boys songs and playing the drums and also playing guitar and also singing. Like he just runs around and it's just like, oh, okay, John Stamos show.
This is
All right.
weird. There's a better video. Here's the actual audio itself, the actual video for the music. This is the greatest crowd too, by the way.
Oh no.
I realize we're all watching a weird video at the same time, and this is a beautiful video. I love this crowd so much.
Wow.
I'll include this in the show notes for people to watch because this is now in my history. This is
it's just there.
I'm right. And for those obviously can't only hear audio because we're only doing pre-record. I am watching in horror, John and Joe with their mouth agape, like just like their mouth have dropped and they don't know what they're handling anymore.
This hurts. Oh no.
Mark McGrath is just he's the hype man.
Yeah.
He's playing drums.
I mean,
they all look damn good.
Well,
damn good.
Stamos directs their new video. Their newest one that just came out. It's just them on white, and it's singing like everyone having fun.
The greatest part is I'm watching them cut to the crowd, and the crowd. Some of them know how to clap, and some are just like, "What are we doing here?"
It's a bunch of white people.
Oh God, no! This is like Beach Boys was already kind of weirdly white, and that was sort of their thing back in the day. This is this is white in 2000.
Oh well, yeah. I mean,
in the 2010s, if you will. They're
in front of the Capitol building. Come on, man. This is whiteness.
Oh God, yes, it is. There is that one lone African American in the crowd, which is sort of a little bit weird because he not only is he not in the American
in these shots.
Yes,
they pan out and where there's thousands of people and you can still make him out.
I mean, again, I love if he's into it, rock and roll. Be what you're into.
Yeah,
but man, maybe don't wear the giant yellow neon shirt among just a sea of red, white, and blue. If just nothing more, just to kind of fade into the crowd just a tad.
Anybody else notice how confused and a bit lost Mike Love seems to be?
Oh, he's on whatever last medication
he's wearing a hat that has his name on it.
That's how he knows.
Oh yeah, he's had that for a while, man.
I did not know that. I had never noticed that.
I take it back. There are some other soldiers in the crowd that are of various races and everything else. So it looks like we have everybody in the crowd. Yeah. It's just so.
It's still sad.
Oh God, it's just depressing that this exists, that this happened.
I'm a firm believer that if you're gonna do something, you go hard and give it your all, or go home. And Sugar Ray is giving it his all, 100% right now. You got to respect that at least.
Honestly, he's bringing some '90s era energy to the show.
Why?
I like that you guys are live sports commentating this.
Because it's
Sugar Ray there is really bringing his all.
Well, because if I watch this live, if I had somehow had this on my feed live. I would almost want it to have slowly fade to black and white and just have the death of America at the very bottom or some crazy thing like that, where it's this is where we become, that this is what we're doing to celebrate the birth of the nation. 4th of July 2017. We have John Stamos and Sugar Ray playing a Beach Boys song. That is where we're at now, America. Enjoy your life.
Very happy.
You know what,
so
though?
That brings us to the darkest timeline.
Exactly.
The darkest timeline began when Three Doors Down played the inauguration.
I'm throwing that out.
Yeah,
that's very fair.
It definitely did.
So we should probably let's get that was a roundabout way of jokingly saying how he got put on a topic there, but let's talk about the new album, because this is something I was thinking about. We're 2 years post Cool Weird Future, which is kind of fun to say. Let's kind of dig a little bit into the new album, because ultimately on the surface it's very much the same, pop punk goodness. It's still punk as punk can be, which is good and great, and I'm happy for that, because that would make me sad. I'm not saying it would make me sad, but it would we would have been having a different conversation if you guys had sort of said, all right, well, we're done with that punk thing. We're going to lean heavy into synthwave, which would have been also interesting, but it would have been an entirely different conversation than you guys saying punk.
For sure.
I guess when did production begin on the new album? When did you guys start actually figuring out even new songs and whatnot?
Well, it's kind of tough because I think the first thing that happened was, I joined the band like shortly after Cool Weird Future came out, and at that point, I learned all the songs. We played a couple shows, and probably about last summer, like May, like about a year ago, is when we kind of started.
That was when we really started, but I think myself and Garrett both have been kind of working on stuff that eventually turned into songs on this record, probably since maybe a week or two after Cool Weird Future came out.
Oh wow!
It was pretty quick after.
Yeah.
Wow, it's even more impressive because that's the one thing I noticed. I mean, not saying Cool Weird Future wasn't cool or great, but this feels more polished. This feels, I mean, that's Open Dream. It sounds better and that, but it feels a lot more focused in terms of thematics. If that makes any sense.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's a reason this is a full length as opposed to. I mean, Cool Weird Future. Like, yeah, of course, we had an idea that we were going for there, but like this one was more like, okay, we kind of have our sound. Let's polish it. Let's figure it out from there. And like so much weird, not in a good way, shit was happening.
Oh yeah.
They're like, let's have some weirder, darker themes on this.
Well, I mean, because that was
it up with video game shit.
Well, no, because that was the interesting thing in general. Because, and I thought about this 2 years back. We hadn't quite approached, and again thinking that rewind the clock even more. Mm-hmm. Even Cool Weird Future began well before everything that's gone down between now and then. In terms of it was before 2016, and 2016 is when we started. I remember I was in Tokyo, and I think I had you guys on post all that. I'd like to say because I was in Tokyo, and everything was still covering the primaries at that point, and sort of the election at that. And then,
right.
And then after all that's said and done, we are where we are now. That's the quick way of saying
wherever that is. Yeah,
we're in a world where where John Stamos and Sugar Ray are performing a Beach Boys song for the 4th of July. That is the world we live in now.
I'd love to hear that being said by the guy from the movie, the guy that always does movie
In a
world where John Stamos and Sugar Ray are in the Beach Boys.
And honestly, though, John Stamos and Sugar Ray being in the Beach Boys is definitely negative, but with everything that's going on, that's one of the better things.
Yeah, no, I know, and that's again, it's fun to always say this is the world we live in, and it's a daily struggle and a daily reminder, that it's not normal. But it's sort of why I think I latched on a lot more to the Darkest Timeline than I thought I would. Not because I didn't think I would enjoy it, but just knowing, I'm like, well, okay, let's see what happens. And I you guys go, in weird places. I think one of my favorite songs, and it's not even one of Apple Music has a tendency of starring the songs that everyone listens to, as sort of the thing. And I always like the fact that when sometimes I'll latch onto a song that doesn't have that star next to it. I'm like, oh, cool. Well, I guess I'm the only one really listening to and liking it, which is always fun. You guys even have a song about the Cassini probe, which I was kind of happily surprised by. I was like, oh crap, someone's singing about Cassini, and in an interesting way of talking to a inanimate object that's no longer in space.
Yeah, that was that song happened at a really, really kind of coming after a pretty dark time for me. Over last summer, my grandma passed away, and then 2 weeks later, my dad got really, really sick, and it looked for a while like we could potentially lose him. So I was just in a very deep state of panic for a long time, and my dad made it through, which I'm super, super grateful. Love my dad very much. But when Cassini happened, I had been trying to write a song for a while, and I had taken a week off of work at the end of the year, and I was like, I want to write a song, and it's just not happening. And I worked for 5 days and nothing happened. And then one day I had plans to go out at 3:00 in the afternoon, It was like 11 o'clock. I jumped in the shower and suddenly the chorus happened in my head and I was like, I gotta go. And it's just like, I just, got dressed real fast and sat down, put down a really crappy vocal track and some guitars and some, very mediocre fake drums and was like, I think I got a song. And but a lot of that song, I wanted to kind of try to connect how I was feeling about missing my grandma because she's such an important part of my life. She played a huge part in raising me. She lived literally next door to me for the first 18 years of my life. So I spent a lot of time there. So the whole idea of, missing this thing that you can't really, ever see again or have any real connection with again, but it still is so important. And I felt that a lot too. It's kind of a weird thing to say. I'm just I goddamn love space. So when this whole thing with the Cassini probe happened, and I was following it all very closely, and I felt this really weird emotional connection with it. So it just kind of came together naturally.
No, that's even more beautiful than I thought it would be. I mean, not because it's not a beautiful song, singing about this, this, because I do think about that sometimes. I think about a lot of I remember it must have been during the Mars rover or one of the rover missions. I don't know if it was the last one, but I think XKCD put a comic up of either XK. It had been them.
It was XKCD. I know what you're talking about.
Okay, where he put the it was sort of the last transmission and sort of him, literally the rover saying okay, well, I'll just wait here. And it was sort of sad and depressing and even a weird way of going I never really thought about until then how important some of these weird things and these artifacts of in time that we're leaving in space are. Like these, if you think about, I always kind of think about those sort of things, the idea of artifacts in time and these sort of objects that exist almost outside of it. We can study it and kind of understand it, but I always think of what will happen when a future generation, either us or someone else that doesn't have the memory of it discovers this weird robotic artifact in on this planet and goes, what is this? Who are the people that made this? Why did they make it, or what does it mean? And all those sort of things. And I never really thought about space in that regard. And I think even hearing Cassini, I'm I never really thought about the idea of here is something we sent. It did its job. And there are, it's not just simply this robot in space. I mean, there's a team behind it. There's these loving, even on a technological scale, those things are impressive. Oh, yeah. But and even hearing you talk about the fact that you were dealing with other emotional shit and things like that, and that connecting, that makes a whole lot more sense on that specific song and going, oh, okay, because there's even other songs on that album that I do wonder about. I was listening, I was just before the podcast began, I was re-listening to, I think, was it Your Tamagotchi? What was the song?
Your Tamagotchi didn't
forget about you. Yeah.
I almost want to feel you guys are singing more about a little bit less about Tamagotchi and more about something else, but that might be my interpretation near the end where it gets really.
Of course.
That's the beauty of that song,
Yeah.
It's, and I feel like that theme it does happen a lot on this album, and that's definitely part Garrett, part John. They're the lyric writers.
I'm gonna chalk a lot of it up to Garrett, because Garrett is the true champion of being able to write a song that is on the surface about one thing, but is really so much deeper if you take 3 seconds to read the lyrics.
Dude, you did Cassini by yourself.
Yeah, but you did.
You're just humble.
Echo, you did Tamagotchi, you did so many other songs, and just I go back and I read those lyrics, and I'm just holy crap, Garrett's so good at this.
on the surface, it's who hurt you?
Yeah. That's sort of the thing.
Who broke your heart?
And I think that's what's interesting about the approach, and it's what makes me sort of happy. It's these sort of things that give me hope in that while we are in a very, very dark timeline in the grand scheme of things, and there's some shit going down in the world, that there's still that glimmer of hope, and there's still that kind of optimism kind of there. And it's cool again listening to the album itself and hearing that. But we should definitely kind of go. So obviously, you began pretty quickly after that. When did you start like landing on the idea of it being a darker thing? Was it just the world happening in general, and it's like that's sort of where everything started going?
Yeah.
I don't think we ever really discussed it. It just kind of we were sending tracks back and forth, and a lot of stuff just kind of happened that way.
We had sent some like darker chiptune shit of me just like fucking around with my Game Boy with like really heavy like just like bass and drum of just like, dum, 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 dum. Like that wouldn't work at all for Weird at Last. And John and I were joking about like we should just do an EP that sounds like Death Heaven writes chiptune music.
Oh my god! Some dark wave chiptunes.
Yeah. Originally, we were going to do something like that, and John was like, let's call it The Darkest Timeline. I'm like, yeah, man, that sounds great. And then we never followed through with it.
Yeah. But then,
I have a bunch of demos. That's it.
Oh my god!
I've probably got like, I don't know, I've probably got like 6 or 7 demos that just got scrapped that we just couldn't pull together for this, or like just didn't seem to fit right. So like, we between the two of us at least, there's probably like another album and a half worth of material.
I mean, you could always do the Darkest Timeline Part 2 or something like that, or like the if you want to take like the Celeste version, you could say like the Darkest Timeline B-sides, and like these are the ones that were like the inverse of the world, and even more darker. Because I think that's why I enjoyed about it a lot more is that it still again had that pop punk sound, but it got way deeper. That I was like, wow, oh shit, this is way more deeper than I thought it was going to be. In a good way.
Well, thank you.
Well,
I think a lot of it stems from specifically why we didn't go the darkest route that we could have with it was like exactly what you said. Like we wanted to have some kind of hope throughout it. And like, yeah, the shit's sad, but like we end on Listen for a reason. We end on like that crazy chiptune epic guitar solo. Like
and Mike's
4-part
drums.
Yeah, exactly. We end on that for a reason of just like, just pay attention and things will be okay. Like,
well, because I think that's like it's definitely an approach, and hearing you say the whole pay attention, things will be okay. I fully agree. Because a lot of it requires, like, it's funny. 2017 for me was getting used to having this deluge of information coming in. Like I'm already kind of used to that, but like the amount of information, how fast it rotates, how fast it comes in the world news, and how to internalize that quickly, figure out a plan of action, and then be able to shift on a dime, which is such a weird thing to talk about when it comes. I mean, world news is always this, but it's never been to the point where I'm having to like 2016 was funny. I'm at a point now where my browser's like, like how browsers say, like, here's your most frequently visited sites. You should go see them. Like Politico's up there now, and it never had been up there before.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things of the past couple of years is like people who were never political at all suddenly just threw their hat in the ring, and it just becomes such a crowded space with so many people just all screaming over each other. That's deafening at times.
A lot of voices.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that with the Darkest Timeline, like the overall kind of theme of it, kind of think of it like a video game. There's going to be tough times. There's going to be times where you just feel like you can't do it and you've been beat down. But you just keep your head up and press on, and good things will come at the end.
So let's dig in a bit more into the actual thing again, and I'm curious because even though the album goes certain order and things like that, what was the first song you guys landed on, like out of the album in terms of production? I'm just curious.
No Man's Sky.
I think No Man's
Really?
Sky.
Oh wow.
No Man's Sky. Yeah.
That was actually recorded last summer for a compilation.
Well, we're trying to get onto a compilation. We didn't make it onto the compilation, but we released a demo of No Man's Sky for one day when Bandcamp was donating all of their proceeds to the Trans Law Center.
Oh yeah, so I bought a ton of music that day.
Yeah, a lot of people did. So they donated all of their proceeds, and we donated all of our proceeds from that too. Just just so all the money went to it. And then we took it down after the 24 hours. And I think we left it up a little bit longer, and anything else that got, anything else that trickled in at the end, we still donated.
That's cool.
Right.
Yeah, that was I forgot about that until right now, because that was the moment I realized that anyone that ever says that they can't do something on a business level, I always remember that moment of like realizing that whatever profit Bandcamp was going to make that day and pay developers with and all that fun stuff, like they just ate that cost. I'm like, that's kind of cool that's happened.
It's amazing.
But so yeah, we could talk hours for that, but we're gonna stay on topic. We're gonna stay on topic because we exist in a world where Sugar Ray and John Stamos are in the Beach Boys.
And they smile the whole time.
They smile the whole damn time.
Loving it.
So okay, so obviously you guys landed on that and had the theme. Did everything just kind of fall into place after? I mean, beyond like the struggles of writing certain songs, did everything just sort of fall into place after that song came out, or was like?
I wouldn't say immediately, but close enough. I mean, I feel like the next one after that was like meta metal.
Okay,
I want to say
kind of.
It was either that or Echo.
For a long time, we had meta metal with just the choruses. And we didn't have a verse for it. The meta metal as like a song, as a song that was structured and had a chorus recorded for it, was probably the next thing to happen. But we didn't actually go in and do the verses for it for a while, and that was I had tried writing something for it, and it was just a disaster. And I kept on trying, and then I eventually just texted Garrett one day and was like, dude, you're so much better at this than I am. Can you please just try to do something? And then like a few hours later, he's like, I don't know, I got this. I'm like, that's so good. Okay. When can we record this? I think the next song to actually happen front to back was Echo Echo.
Okay.
Yeah.
A large portion of this album was just done very piecemeal. Like,
that's
Garrett
pretty much
would have something, and then I'd record something, and then
I mean,
John would record something, then we'd go back months later and re-record things.
Yeah, that's pretty much how the whole record happened. I mean, a lot of the recording happened at Garrett's apartment and my apartment, and then Joe did some stuff at his place. Dave did all of his bass parts at his apartment.
Oh, wow.
And then we went in at the end and went to our buddy Tom's, and he tracked the drums for us in his apartment, well, his house.
Oh, wow. Then you mastered it and mixed it together in some capacity.
Yeah, we did it at Tom's house. He's a great engineer.
He's amazing.
Yeah, he's got a great ear, and we just gave the project over to him. Went over to his house a couple of times, gave some input here and there, and
the last session, myself, Mike, and Joe went over there, and we just sat there for about 12 hours until it was like literally 1:00 in the morning, and we had just finished the listen through of the complete master. And he was like, "How's that?" And I was like, "It sounds great, bounce." And like,
sounds great, ship it.
Yeah, and it's just like, he's like, "Cool, I'll have the links for you, and I'll have a link for you in the morning." I'm like, "Great." I'm
gonna go home and sleep.
I stopped at Taco Bell. I went home, and my fiance's in bed, and she was like, "How did it go?" I'm like, "The record's done. I'm going to bed."
Some grizzled war veteran.
This punk rock's a young man's game. Let me tell you.
Punk rock's a young man's game.
I'm turning 30 in 2 months. I'm getting married in 3 weeks. Like, punk rock's a young man's game.
I mean, it is and it isn't. I think it's. I mean, I'm in my 30s myself, so I'm 35. So I'm already at the point where I'm like. So there we go. I think again, the exciting part for me this year has been, because ever since Square Sounds, like I've started getting more chiptunes have started coming past my viewpoint, which is great. And even one of my favorite chiptune bands, YMCK, has released 2 albums between now and then, which is awesome. And I'm even hearing this, the things that excite me is that there are still new things in chiptunes, and there's still places we haven't gone in this genre. And I realize there are those who would argue, and I think I even said it probably the first time I had you guys on, and I'll continue to say, there are those who argue, well, it's not quite chiptunes because there's this live action element and stuff like that. And I go, yeah, well, Anamanaguchi. And then they go Anamana who, and then I have to explain them. Here's the birth. Let me explain the birth of chiptunes to you.
Yeah. I mean, not to toot our own horn too much, but I mean, Joe figured out how to play the guitar through a Game Boy, and that happens on every song on this album.
Oh yeah.
And not just not just monophonic. Yeah, dude can play chords on it now, which wasn't a thing.
How did you figure that out? Actually, now I'm curious.
Well, it was a work in progress for a while. This is something I'd wanted to do for years. Like before I knew what chiptunes were, back in like the early 2000s, I was in a band, and I had an old we had an old ARP Odyssey synthesizer that I wasn't very good at soldering, but I tried to repair it, and I eventually did. And I'm like, wouldn't it be great if I could just have a way to run my guitar through this thing? And whenever I play, sounds like this awesome fat analog sound. And it wasn't until in the recent years, I took some more electronics classes and really learned, electronic theories and how to solder. And one of my professors told me, just go online, find projects, and build things. That's how you get better. And that's when I found out about the Arduino boy.
Yes.
So everybody was using it for LSDJ and using it to, for like triggering samples and things like that. And I'm like, I bet I could somehow figure out a way to run my guitar through this thing. I don't know, how hard could it be?
Turns out pretty hard.
Yeah.
Oh no, it is, because that's why my brain
trial
was.
and error.
Well, because so to explain technically to people, especially those who are new to chiptunes or just understand chiptunes being this idea of making music on Nintendos and Game Boys and Sega Genesis and things like that, Amigas and Commodore 64s if you're even more special. All of this is basic, and I probably said this even the first time I had you guys on, and I'm saying it again because I always reiterate it. All of this is a weird hack. Like there was a tweet recently that Null Sleep had posted, and like we are 18 years since LSDJ came out, and they're still like making patches.
Oh yeah, I mean they just released the newest version like last week.
Yeah, exactly, that's what he tweeted about. And I'm like
6.1, I think.
That's exactly, and that's like LSDJ when it came out was this like weird hack, and now it is what it is now. And I think that's why I've always liked about chiptunes and why I always feel it is the new punk, because you have a lot of these like weird hacker elements, and I've always because like you talking about other synths and stuff like that, like running a guitar through that, like it's akin to like, what if I could make a pedal that sounded like a Game Boy type thing?
Yeah. In a digital age, basically like this is the new DIY. Yep. It's just how I have these sounds that I grew up with. It's nostalgic for some people. It just gives you the warm fuzzy feelings. And it's just, well, how do I harness this and make this into music? So, when I first joined Weird at Last, Mike, our drummer, like I've been friends with him since high school. We go way back. And he told me, I didn't really know Garrett. I had met John a few times. He said, me and some guys, we started this chiptune punk band. And he's like, I know you were working on this Game Boy guitar. This would be a kind of a cool thing that we could kind of incorporate it together. So, we got together, we had a couple practices. But one of the things that really kind of bummed me out was we had to play to a click track because we had samples. Some things in LSDJ that were, I think John used to bounce them to a track and have them on like an iPad.
Yeah.
Play it, over the PA system. And the thing about our drummer, Mike, I've known this guy for probably 20 years. We've been in countless bands together. He's the best drummer I've ever met. Incredible. Mike is one of the best drummers in the world. I will go out on a limb and say that. Like, I mean, if you want to hear Mike lose his mind, go listen to him and Joe's old band, ASOB. Go listen to Bomb the Music Industry. Like, Mike is a disgusting drummer. It is. But if it's one thing I hate, it's Mike Costa playing to a click track, because it's like taking Picasso and giving him like water paints and saying, "Here,
paint by numbers."
Make a masterpiece, paint by numbers.
Yeah, like.
But I think that there's something.
Him.
But I think there's still something to that, because only because you have this element in the song that you have to match, and if it goes, obviously you can't deviate, which is always sometimes a pain, but if that thing goes a certain beat, like you got to keep up with that thing. Like it usually in music, if the drummer kind of keeps the tone, they keep the rhythm, they keep the the pace, the tempo. Meaning if they drift a bit, you guys can kind of compensate and stuff like that. Not saying that they're going to, but they're talented. But it happens. That's how music works. But if something else is keeping the tempo or the tone, like, all right, I got to match this, because if I don't match this, then that's gonna break us out. Right, exactly.
All falls apart.
But like even having the iPad play, I mean, it's so typical to have like a Game Boy crash. So I mean, you guys at least avoid that.
That's why we started using it was an iPod, like an iPod Classic.
That's half the fun. That's like, a Game Boy crashing at a
crash.
Well, no, a Game Boy crashing at a chiptunes concert is akin to you blowing an amp at a punk show, and it's like you did the job, you did it right. I guess I'm gonna ask you, Joe, because you are the newest member of this whole thing. So because we haven't really touched on you joining, like you mentioned that Mike was your friend and that the whole Game Boy thing. What then kept you kind of with the band after just a few kind of jam sessions?
I love the songs. I love the music, and I just saw so much potential. Like it was something that. 10, 15 years ago, I said, wouldn't it be great to just mix punk rock and Nintendo? And, then over the years, bands like Anamanaguchi and like Horse the Band and other, groups that did various amounts of, punk and chiptune together. And so to finally find a group of people who said, yeah, it's what we want to do. And here it is. And we're doing it, it just meshed, it just clicked. And we all, once we started to get to know each other, we realized we all worked really well together. We would just have these sessions where we just spitball ideas at each other and, come up with some harmonies here and some, leads here. And next thing you know, we've got, a whole coherent song put together.
And that's I think the coolest thing about like this genre is that you can start to find the people that do these weird things. Because like I remember it must have been like one of the first docs on chiptunes. I think it was Reformat the Planet, and the guy that was doing visuals or was like kind of helping visuals, like he used to do punk rock visuals, and he was like, this is as close as we get to punk rock now. It's sort of like what's happening in chiptunes at that time. And even though it is now a very, very established genre in the grand scheme of, oh yeah, I know what that sounds like, Game Boys or whatever. Again, LSDJ is now 18 years old. That tells you how long we've had this sort of thing. I like the fact that there are still people doing new stuff with it and still trying to figure a different way to approach this genre. But let's kind of go back. We're going to go kind of that. We're almost out of time. We've almost hit the hour mark, which is insane and crazy.
Wow.
You didn't expect that, did you?
Right by.
Yeah.
That's usually how the show goes. And that if I do my job, that. But I do have to ask, because this is something, because obviously we have Darkest Timeline. We it's come out. Everyone, it's doing good. I'm hoping people are buying it and jamming out to it. At least that's my hope and dream.
It's been doing really well.
We've
actually
got really good feedback from people so far. So
yeah,
that's good.
Very happy. Yeah.
What's next on the horizon? Because I know I've been seeing sort of everyone, like a lot of you guys I'm friends with on Facebook. So I've been seeing like timeline stuff and pictures of Game Boy carts in like various parts of the world, and I'm just curious, like what's going to come next? Because now that you've had like sort of the album with the new version, if you will, like the new edition, and you figured that out. What's to come? What's the future hold?
Well,
are you guys going to make a cover of John Stamos and Sugar Ray singing for the Beach Boys in chiptunes?
Yeah,
God,
yes.
I hope not.
Too late. Look in your Dropbox.
Oh, good. I'm so excited. I guess. Well, like I said, I'm getting married in 3 weeks, and that's been kind of like the insane thing. And then, pretty much right after that, the plan is to get everyone together and start really practicing these songs and get like a very solid set list together. We've been talking about doing some weekenders with this band called TTB, who are really good, who also make great chiptune like punk music. who there are from Massachusetts. So we want to do like a couple weekenders with them. We want to play a bunch of shows in New York, and basically see how far it can take us. We really want to get out there and play a lot of shows now, because now we have a lot of songs to do that with.
Yeah, that's also a good thing too, that you guys have a bigger set list to kind of draw from.
Yeah,
exactly.
We had played a few shows last summer
with just playing through Cool Weird
5
Future
songs and a cover from one of your old bands. Yeah. So it was like a 20-minute set, and then a couple of weeks later we play the same bar again. And then people are like,
sorry.
You guys are great, but those are the exact same songs you played last time.
Yeah. So
it kind of, we were like, all right, we need some more material.
Yeah. So, now we have enough music that we can really, we can change it up. We can, actually play a full set and, play different sets. And so I think the plan now is to really just get out there and play as many shows as we possibly can. And, I'm sure more writing will happen, because even this record happened pretty much completely DIY. So, as far as writing for a new record goes, one could argue that we might have already began and we don't even know it.
And I think that's always the case, because like I know like one of my friends' bands that's right now on tour as we speak, Bitforce, like when they come back to Austin, they're going to have some actual original stuff, because they do a lot more kind of cover sort of driven things, or they had in the past, and now they're doing some more original stuff, which I'm kind of intrigued by. And I knowing enough musicians from all points of music, I know a lot of times that you tend to write stuff in spurts that like you said, you're in the shower at the beginning, like, oh shit, that's the song. And you kind of have to write it down and quickly jot something down either down on paper or record a audio sample or something, just to kind of get it out of the way, because you don't know if you ever have the idea again. And I understand that sometimes that happens even when you're on tour. Like I've had friends who've made songs after they've come back from a con or after they've come back from something, and that's when they have that's in their fresh in their minds about thinking of some issue or something that kind of came about. And I can imagine that once you guys start doing more live shows, that'll help sort of pick stuff up. And my hope and dream is that eventually you guys do enough live shows where you guys can come down here to Austin and play some of our venues down here, because I
would love to.
Well, because there's a decent punk scene here, and that punk is always that. I always feel that punk is, and I realize it now as I look back at the history of certain genres, that punk has always been the most welcoming. It has been at least tried to be a welcoming genre.
For sure,
for good and for bad, and sometimes depending on what side of the punk spectrum you understand from.
Right.
But I've always felt it is a very welcoming genre, and at least tries to allow all walks of life into this weird power chord driven genre music form. And I would definitely love to see, like, as a fan of chiptunes, have more people who are not traditionally fans of chiptunes who hear punk inside go like, oh, but this sounds like really cool punk. Oh, what's that digital thing that's there? Oh, it's a Game Boy making music. A Game Boy makes music? Yeah, you didn't know about chiptunes? And I have to explain it to somebody and say, here's what it is. And it's this cool thing. Like, I had friends at South by. There's a chiptunes guy here in San Antonio called Starfighter Dreams, and he was playing a lot of the South by kind of sets my friends were throwing. And one of my friends who was there had never heard chiptunes before, had never known. He's like, man, this guy's making music on his Game Boy. I'm like, oh, you've never heard chiptunes? That's awesome. Like, let me give you a deluge of other artists you should check out. Here's Toriana. Here's Weird at Last. Here's Boy Meets Robot. Here, throwing all these sort of like this culmination of the past years of music that's come out in this genre, and trying to condense it and introduce somebody new. And that's why I think I like this album as much as I do, is because to me, and I keep saying this and I want to read it one last time, is it's something new. It's something different that I haven't heard in chiptunes. And that makes me really excited to go and say, oh, look, this is new. Someone else has figured out something that I didn't think about that you could be doing chiptunes. Someone made this and figured it out. Someone, because Anamanaguchi has done punk, and they've kind of, they've kind of turned away from the chiptune genre as of late. Again, it's their call, it's their music. I'm not gonna ever say that, oh, why aren't you playing? Like, I don't care. Like, if that's what you want to do, and if tour with what's the fucking Vocaloid's name? I can't believe I'm making that name.
Oh yeah, Miku.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. And that's again. Who am I to judge? It is your band. It is your money. If it is doing what you want to do in life, rock and roll. I'm never going to ever. Yeah. But I was a little bit bummed. I was like, well, I guess we'll never see it. At least Knife City will do a couple of his own things and kind of move on there. But hearing you guys kind of do that and have vocals and have all these sort of these elements that people would associate more with, for lack of better words, traditional punk, and still have this Game Boy making music. I'm like, that's really cool, and I'm excited that we have this and that this is coming out from you guys, because it is something different.
It almost felt really natural coming out. We all most of us come from a very punk background. We've all been in punk bands, playing in the punk scene for years, and we all happen to love video games. So it's kind of, when you think about it, a match made in heaven. Like,
well, because you bring up the idea that punk has always come off as like the DIY kind of music scene, in that you had a lot of these just like weird shit come out of it in the history of punk over the years of punk, and how much DIY can you get that you're taking what people would consider old toy and making music on it, and then mixing it with your guitar, and then going, well, how can I run my guitar again? Going like, man, it'd be cool if I could run my guitar through this. Oh, I can run my guitar through this, and just like that's such a weird idea. It's
I still get like supercharged whenever I take the guitar, the Game Boy guitar. It's on a pedal board with there's a lot of pedals, compressors, chorus, lots of things to make it kind of work and sound good. So I set it up, and people in the audience look and say, "The hell? Why does he have a Game Boy on his pedal board?" And then they'll hear me play, and they're like, "Is that being triggered somewhere? Like, is there somebody behind the scenes with LSDJ on a Game Boy?"
If they're even thinking that, like, technical, because they might just be like, "How the fuck? Like, is he running his guitar through the Game Boy? What the fuck?" Like, that's all that needs to happen.
That's exactly what numerous people have just come up to me and just said, "The fuck?"
Because that's again that is the weird dream. Like that is the cool concept. The idea of your brain goes, what if I could run this through Nintendo? What if I could do X, Y, or Z? And to me, I think that's what makes punk interesting, is that you see those sort of weird fringe stuff there, and you always do, and that to me even feels like a natural thing for chiptunes, which is I guess why I say it came naturally. It just feels like they're both the same thing.
And that DIY ethic, that goes all the way back to the first musicians who, would slice the speakers of their amplifiers to get distortion.
Yep.
I want this something to sound a certain way. Maybe if I do this, it'll work. And, and even if it doesn't work, you have something interesting. Maybe
well, you experiment and you try, and I think
sticks.
Right, and I think that to me is cool, and that's sort of I think why I really dig the idea of like you just kind of going and saying, what if I could do this, and you did it and it worked, and even if it didn't work, you're like, well, I gave it a shot, I tried it. I guess let's see if I can. Let's try version 2. Let's see what did I do wrong? What did I learn? Everything else.
The first time I tried running with some like the Roland MIDI pickups and like a GI 10 or a GI 20 to try to do the MIDI tracking, and it just wasn't very good. It just missed a lot of notes and hard to keep time. So I could have scrapped the whole project there, but I said, maybe I'm getting at this from the wrong angle, and I found other ways to do it. So
totally. Well, we have hit the hour mark finally. We are completely and utterly out of time, but John, Joe, Garrett, thank you all for being on the show once again and joining me in a on topic, no deviation episode of my so-called 8-bit life.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
No, for sure. But tell people where they can find you guys online and how they can get a hold of this album.
Absolutely. You can best way to get the record is on our Bandcamp. That's weirdAtLast.bandcamp.com. If you follow us on Facebook, search for Weird at Last. We're on Twitter at Weird at Last Band, and Instagram also Weird at Last Band. Worth noting, if you go on the Bandcamp, you can stream it on there for free. To download the record is a couple bucks, but if you want it for free, if you just look in the liner notes, you'll see a way to do that. So.
Oh, and tell them about the cool Game Boy cartridge.
Oh, yeah. And if you make it out to a show, since we're going to be playing a lot of shows really soon, we're going to have the record available on these really cool Game Boy cartridges. So we have our new record.
I have so many questions how you got the labels printed. That's the only portion I want to know is how you get the labels printed.
We can talk. I've got a guy.
For sure. Of course, you can find me. I'm at Vincent404 on the Twitters, Facebooks, everything else in between. If you want to catch previous episodes of podcasts, including the previous episode I had these guys on, you go to our website, CosmicRadio.TV /8BitLife. There, find links to show notes, previous episodes mentioned. And of course, if you have a few change after buying all the cool albums, you get over to patreon.com /8BitLife and help this show become bigger, better, and more awesomer. So that's it for today. So until next time, talk to another geek, or in this case, a group of geeks about something completely and utterly random. Bye, people.